Welcome, class. This is the About the Course lecture that is in week 1. Listen to this lecture. Ideally, you'll listen to it with the syllabus in front of you. This goes through some basic information that's very important to understand about the course. After you've listened to the lecture, then you'll want to take the About the Course quiz. Here you see the first page of the syllabus with some basic information: my name, where I'm located. My office is at Dobbs Ferry in Mercy Hall, room 28A. I'm more than happy to meet with you on demand, either in person or through Skype or over the phone. There's my office number, but the quickest way to reach me is through email at nheilbrenner@mercy.edu. Here's our course description and our School of Education mission statement. I want to spend just a minute talking about academic integrity, something that we talk about as plagiarism. Most of the assignments in this course are put through something called SafeAssign, and that automatically checks your paper against thousands of papers out there that have been submitted through college portals. It also checks it against internet sources. It's very good at finding plagiarism. So the penalty for plagiarism is quite severe. So I hope that you will not do that. Sometimes the hardest thing to watch is a student who inadvertently plagiarized something. So what do I mean by that? I mean, maybe you used something on the internet a few years ago in your classroom and you want to reuse it and you forgot that you took it from the internet, and all of a sudden the paper SafeAssign finds your paper and there's a big match, and then I have to communicate with you, and then you have to redo the paper, or you possibly even risk getting an F on it. So all the work in this course is supposed to be original. So what that means is you can't reuse rubrics that you've been using in your classroom. And just to be safe, you really should do it from scratch. The other thing I want to talk about plagiarism is there's such a thing as self-plagiarism. And what this means is you can't duplicate portions of papers that you've turned in for other classes. I've received papers through the years where students have written half the paper for another course, and that's considered double dipping. It will find that. I will have to have a conversation with you about how that's inappropriate. You will have to rewrite it. So don't be tempted to go back and use the same language that you're using in papers for other classes this semester. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we touch on the field work. If you have a disability, then you need to register it with the Office of Accessibility. The contact information is here. And then let me know. They give you a form to send to professors. So for example, if you get time and a half on assignments or whatever it is. Counseling service contact information is here as well. I want to talk for a minute about technical difficulties. Something that's very difficult for students who are taking online classes first time is figuring out the interactions. How do you submit papers? How do you respond to discussion boards? So first of all, I want to encourage you not to put those things out off until the last minute. I'm not going to be waiting at my computer at 11:30 at night, half hour before an assignment is due, for your desperate course message or email that says I need help. I'll probably be asleep. So what you want to do is to not submit that assignment at 11:30, but plan to submit it, at noon of the day it's due. And that way, if you're having trouble uploading something or you're having technical difficulties, you can call or email the help desk, and they're very good, especially if you call them, at helping you figure out what the problem is. I'm not the technical expert on how to do that, so you should contact the help desk, and the information is here for you. Now let's talk for a minute about field experiences. Most of your classes in the ed school have you going out into the field, into schools for observations or interviews, or even to work with students. The state requires 10 fieldwork hours per course. Now we have roughly taken that to mean it's 10 hours total, so you won't be asked to observe 10 hours necessarily in each classroom, but 10 hours total counting the observation time, the planning time for your paper, the writing time, the submission time. There is a fieldwork assignment in this course. You are not allowed to double dip on hours. So what that means is you can't do one observation for 3 classes and just write it up differently. If I find that you do that, you're either going to fail or you're going to have to redo the observation. And it may be too late in the course to go out and observe another 6 to 8 hours or whatever that you would need to do. So make plans to have a separate and unique observation for this course. As well, you shouldn't self-plagiarize, as I talked about before. Now we get to the meat of the lecture, which is really about the classroom policies. And it's important to understand these because they're slightly different than what you may be used to. First of all, just like in every other course, you're expected to arrange your schedule so that you can meet assignment deadlines in a timely manner. However, an acknowledgement that things happen, we all need a little extra time from time to time. Most assignments may be submitted up to a week late, and I'm going to take a 10% point penalty. That's no matter what the reason. I can't really know who's being truthful, who's not, what's going on in your life. I can sympathize and I can support you, but to be consistent and fair, I take a 10% point penalty if it's late. After a week, the assignment's no longer accepted. In addition, there are 2 assignments, the fieldwork and extra credit vocabulary project that we'll talk about later, that won't be accepted late because they come very late in the semester. So it's important to understand that. No assignments will be accepted after the last day, May 10th, 2020. It's important to know that papers should be submitted using Microsoft Word. So this is why I wrote you prior to the semester start to tell you to line up a copy of Microsoft Word. They should not be submitted in PDF format or any other thing. It makes it very difficult to edit it and provide the feedback in the way I like to do. You can't turn in papers, emailing them to me or printing them and mailing them to me. They must be turned in on Blackboard through the assignment link. And if you try to email them to me, I will ask you to use the submission link. All assignments must follow APA. I put a really good resource on the course shell. That's the Purdue website, OWL, which goes over rules for APA. Assignments may be revised and resubmitted. In the past, students have really liked this aspect of the course. And the reason I do this is because you learn more if you're allowed to understand what your mistakes were and fix them. So most assignments may be revised and resubmitted up to a week after it's graded. So let's say you turn it in on Sunday and I grade it on Wednesday. You've got a week from that Wednesday to revise and resubmit. And the way you do that is simply to revise and resubmit using the same link. If for some reason the link's not working, just send me an email. There's a setting that I can change. No assignments, again, even revisions, will be accepted after May 10th. We have a lot of student learning outcomes. I'm not going to read them all, but these are the things that you should be able to do by the end of the course. Let's talk for a minute about the required textbook. I've emailed you that you can get this from Amazon or through the Mercy bookstore. It's the 7th edition of Classroom Assessment by Macmillan, 2017. This reference here that you see, Macmillan 2017, by the way, is how you put in your papers when you need to cite and reference the textbook. It's also in the syllabus, and I sometimes will say this isn't how you reference the textbook, please go see the syllabus. The little asterisk at the end shouldn't be included in your reference because that's just refers to a note on the syllabus. You don't need the My Learning Lab materials or any other supplemental materials. You can rent the textbook, you can purchase the textbook, you can get an e-version, you may get a hard copy version. Whatever you do, you're going to need it by week 2 because one of the assignments for week 2 is to send me proof of this textbook purchase. Now, why do I think it's important to purchase the textbook? Several reasons. One, I find that students who purchase the textbook do much better in the course. 2, assessment is such a broad topic that I cannot possibly cover all the things you need to know in my brief lectures in this online course. So the readings are important. And so that's why I require that you purchase this or rent this textbook. So your grade in the course is based on what I call 100 course points, and you can actually see these going up if you look at your grade as the semester progresses in Blackboard. It's under My Grade. And here's how it's broken down. Each week there'll be a learning module that we'll talk about in a bit, and usually these learning modules are worth 2 points. 15 weeks times 2 points, that's 30 points of the course points, or 30% of your grade. The EdTPA instruction and assessment project is worth 20% of your grade, or 20 course points. The quiz project is worth 15%. There's a performance assessment project worth 15% and a fieldwork paper that's worth 20% for a total of 100 points. However, there is an optional extra credit assignment that if you choose to do it is worth up to 2 course points. That's a big deal. It can actually bump your grade up a letter grade if you're close to that. Here's your grading scale. So if your course average comes up to an 87, you can see you're going to get a B+ in the class. So at the end of the course, you can keep track of your total points on Blackboard, but at the end of the course, you can actually see where your average is and see what your letter grade would be. Let's talk about the assignments in the course. This is just going to be a general overview. You'll go into much more detail for each individual assignment as the course progresses. So I said that each week you're going to have a learning module that's due. Normally these modules are posted well in advance and they're found on the Course Materials tab in Blackboard. So you can work in advance if you like, but they're no later than Monday of the week they'll be posted. They're due every week, Sunday at midnight. And they consist of different things. You might be asked to watch a video. You might be asked to complete a worksheet. You might be asked to read and comment. Discussion boards are frequently posted. And so all of that is included in the 2 points each week for your individual learning module. Together, that adds up to 30% of your grade. So you really want to keep on top of this, not only because that's important for points, but this is the way we learn in the class. I posted a discussion board rubric. So when you do a discussion board in a learning module, I grade it, and I use this rubric to grade it. You'll find that I'm not so picky about that you comment on a lot of other people's posts. You have to do what I call a response post that's substantive and meaningful, answering the questions. And then you have 2 other kinds of posts. One is a reaction. That's a reaction to a colleague where you comment on something that they have said. And the important thing to realize here is that you can't just say good job. You've got to contribute something meaningful by advancing the discussion. That means you need to ask a question or comment and then find some way to extend the conversation about, well, here's how I view it. You can't just say good job on a post. Now the close the loop posts are due Monday. I said everything's due Sunday, and the only exception to that is the close the loop posts. And this is if I've come in and commented on your discussion post, you must respond to me or you're going to lose points on this row, the second row of the rubric. Usually I'm asking you a questions to get you to think deeper, or I'm asking you a question because I'm confused about something you said, or I'm asking you to follow up. So it's important to check back on Monday to see if I've commented and then if I have answer. Finally, professional communication. This is just about being respectful and also posting responses that are grammatically correct and not full of spelling errors, etc. The second assignment we're going to talk about is your EdTPA data analysis assignment. Many of you understand that the EdTPA is a certification test that you will be taking and completing during your student teaching semester. This assignment is meant to prepare you somewhat so that you can think about assessment, which is a big part of the EdTPA, in terms of how do you know what students are learning while you're teaching, and if you get data, can you analyze it and really say what students have learned and what they need to be retaught. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. It is 20% of your grade, and we'll be spending a lot more time later in the semester. It's divided into two parts, each of which are worth 10% of your grade. Part 1 is due February 23rd, and Part 2 is due March 8th. The third assignment is the quiz project. This is worth 15% of your grade, and it's due March 22nd. For your quiz project, you're going to be making up a quiz that's aligned with a learning target, and you're going to run some reading analysis on it so that it's appropriate for the grade level that you intend the quiz to be. This is important. It's important to realize that this quiz must be for second grade or higher. Developmentally, it's really not appropriate to be giving quizzes to preschoolers or kindergartners or sometimes even first graders, especially if they're not reading. So you early childhood folks, you're going to be certified through second grade, so you will be doing second grade quiz here. Another assignment is the performance assessment project, and that's worth 15% of your grade and due April 19th. A performance task is one that's not just simply knowledge. It might be, for example, asking a student to write an essay. It might be, it's one in which they have to perform, and we'll learn more about that later. So you're going to make up a performance task and then come up with a rubric to grade it, and also a student rubric to give the student so they know what a good quality submission is. Again, that's due April 19th. Your fieldwork paper is a classroom observation. It's worth 20% of your grade, and it's based on 10 hours of fieldwork, but that includes the planning, the observation, and the preparation and submission of the assignment. This is due May 3rd, and if you look at the description here, you'll see that you're only required to observe for a minimum of 6 hours in the classroom. This should be in a classroom that matches your area, your grade level, and your subject matter for certification. So if you're going for elementary certification, it should be in a K through 6 classroom. If you're going for adolescent certification, it should be in an adolescent high school class, like a 7th to 12th grade classroom, but it should also match your subject area. So if you're going for English, it should be in an English classroom. You may not use these hours to double for another fieldwork in another class because the state requires that each observation be separate. And you need to think about starting to arrange that now. Now, what I'm going to tell you is don't go in for the observation now. I would wait to do the observation, until about March, because you really don't know what you're looking for. If you go in now, you're going to be very confused. You're going to think you're just looking for tests or quizzes, and that's not what assessment is. So start to think about where you're going to do your observation and set it up, but don't go in until March. You may not observe in your own classroom because you can't teach or be a teacher's aide and observe at the same time. I don't know if anyone's discussed this with you, but the faculty at Mercy are tracking these placements now, and they're recorded in your task stream portfolios. And we like to see, and the state likes to see, a diversity of fieldwork placement experiences. So what that means is if you've just been observing in an urban environment, you might want to get out to a suburban environment. If you've only observed in third grade, you might want to go to first grade or fifth grade, so that by the end of your time here at Mercy, you have many different types of observations and many different types of settings. And this will help you when you go out to get a job. You'll be able to discuss some of those settings more knowledgeably. A final assignment I'd like to discuss is the optional vocabulary project. This is worth up to 2 points on your final grade, extra credit. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it could. Let's say you have an average of 89 in the class, that's a B plus. This would bump you up to a 91, which is an A minus. You don't have to do it, but if you choose to do it, it's due May 10th. And the way it works is each week you'll be given vocabulary. This will be found not only in the course site, in the weekly learning folders, but it'll also be found in the syllabus and the timetable we're going to discuss in a minute. And it's important to know this vocabulary because this vocabulary will show up on the EdTPA. And the more knowledgeably you can discuss it using the terms, the more likely you are to pass. There's a vocabulary template that's in the assignment folder, and all you have to do is download that, enter the vocabulary term, give its definition, and use it in a sentence. Again, you wait until the very end of the course. You don't submit it weekly. You wait until the very end, and by May 10th, you'd submit it, and I'll take a look at it. If it's complete, I'm giving you 2 extra credit points. This is an important part of the syllabus. This is the course schedule or timetable. Each week, you can see where we are and the date that the module is due. So week 1 is due January 26th. The topic is listed in italics for you. Introduction to the course and to assessment is what we're talking about this week. And here's that vocabulary that I mentioned for the week. Any readings and assignments that are due, you can see we didn't have a reading for this week because it's the first week. Not everyone has their text, but the learning module is due. So all the activities that are in the checklist at the end of the README file will be due. You can see that next week, February 2nd, we're going to shift gears and talk about standards and cognitive learning targets. There's the week vocabulary, chapter 2. You're to read Macmillan chapter 2, and there'll be a series of activities in learning module 2. You'll also see the assignments that I discussed show up here under the final column when they're due. So for this week, make sure you've completed all the activities in the README file from week 1. You should have gone into the Getting Started tab, looked around, posted an introduction, watched my welcome video, and then started working through the lecture in the course materials week 1 folder. Everything is in the checklist at the bottom of the README file, which I'll show you in just a minute. So you can refer to that checklist to make sure that you haven't missed something. This is all due Sunday, January 26th, and if I forgot to mention it before, everything is due at midnight. So here's that checklist I've been mentioning. At the bottom or at the end of every README file each week, which will be the first thing in the folder, in the learning module folder, you'll see this checklist. So for this week, you should have clicked on the welcome start here and read through the information, including that getting started attachment that's in the on that tab. Viewed the short introductory video that I posted, posted an introductory message and uploaded a photo or video of yourself. Opened the week 1 folder under course materials and the README file, which this was taken from. Viewed this lecture about the course and taken the quiz about the course quiz. When you take that quiz, it's open books, notes, whatever. and you can use your syllabus. And then we're delving a little bit into the meat of the course. Watch the Introduction to Assessment lecture, and then there's one assignment due, types of assessment, that you just complete after you finish everything else and submit for credit. By the way, all the point values are always listed in the README file for all the individual assignments. And also all the learning objectives. This is an assessment course, so read through what you should be able to know and do, and that's at the top of the README file. That's it. And if you have any questions, again, please do email me. I'd much rather correspond with students through email ahead of if they have confusion or problems. Some students are afraid to reach out to the professor because they are afraid of looking stupid, and I don't view it that way. I really view it as it's better to clear up any misconception, no matter how small the question you think is, or how large it is, or how difficult the problem is, than have a problem go on and it might be weeks and weeks or even towards the end of the course and there's no way to correct it. So everybody have a good first week. Hope you enjoy this part of the course, and I'll speak with you again next week.